Hello and welcome to the first session of DAC6 Academy, our 12-week webinar series. I am Ali Kazimi and I'm the Managing Director of Hansuke. Over the course of this series, we will be bringing you expert commentary on the highly complex DAC6 regime. DAC6 is arguably the most significant development in the tax transparency agenda to date. Once it is fully operational, it will dwarf both FATCA and CRS. We at Hansuke specialize in simplifying complexity for our clients. Today's show is no different as we look at the pivotal role technology plays in complying with DAC6 reporting requirements. Reporting is an essential part of the compliance program. However, it is often overlooked or left to the last. So to correct this, we have decided to tackle it first, kickstarting our DAC6 Academy by inviting one of the leading lights in the field. When working with tech folks in the past, one key differentiator for me was whether or not they understood taxation. It seems to me that the people who only have a technology background or only a tax background are at a disadvantage to those that have fused both. The reason I mentioned that is that my guest today read taxation law at university, then went on to work for a global bank, and then joined one of the large Big Four consultancy firms. He has seen all aspects of the business before launching his tax technology platform. I'm really pleased that he has agreed to join us today for the launch of our DAC6 Academy webinar series. With that, I would like to invite my guest and good friend, Hank Moonen, the founder of TaxModel International. Hank, perhaps you could start by telling us a little bit about your past, your journey from being a tax consultant to the founder of TaxModel.
Yeah, thank you, Ali, for your warm words, and welcome to everybody to today's webinar. I'm very excited that I can join you in your journey, as I call that, in the technology field. Yeah, for me, it also was a long journey. I started a bit earlier than this year with DAC6. I started already in my career historically in '93 as a international tax consultant of today PwC. At that time, it was still called Coopers & Lybrand. From there, I moved for 1 year working for ABN AMRO Bank on the investment banking division. And after that, I switched temporarily back to PwC. And after that, I went into as an in-house tax manager for a medium-sized multinational for 3 years in the Netherlands as a tax director. And after that, I approached basically the investor in that company I worked for as a private equity firm based in London. And I proposed whether I could serve them assisting their portfolios on a kind of simultaneous chess playing basis as an interim tax director. And they agreed to that concept, but not as an employee of them. They asked me to become a preferred supplier for their portfolio companies. And that's how I kickstarted my company. In the meantime, I've been working for 40 plus multinationals. Of course, not alone. In the beginning, I was alone. A one-man show in 2005. I worked on myself for 6 years in-house, on average 3 to 5 multinationals. And then I had too much work and I switched to hiring people. So then I became my first-time employer. And in the meantime, we've grown to 25 people, out of which like 50% consist of international tax consultants, and the other half consists of software developers. So as already Ali mentioned in the beginning, we really fused the technology side with the tax expertise to make sure that whatever we build, we can really build connected tools that we confirm the domain expertise. And today we are, say, 2 years down the road. We were invested 2 years ago by a venture capitalist who supported us to basically transition from our consulting firm where we offer in-house tech services to a product organization where we want to become 100% SaaS-based, and that we offer the world basically standardized tax technology as an affordable alternative to the big four. That's a bit of in a bird's flight where I come from.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And what would be useful, Hank, is to understand a bit more about the person, Hank, and sort of like we've seen the glossy stuff. But what I wanted to find out is, there you are in the midst of these private equity companies, and you've got all of that going on, all that jazz. What was the real motivation for you to go and set up a technology platform? Because it is a departure from your past. What was that driving factor? Yeah.
Now, historically, I want to become a vet, a doctor, basically. I ended up in the tax world, so that was kind of like a sudden change. But I also studied for 1 year IT, not very successful, but I always had an interest in software, a very early stage, of course. So what motivated me is that, I always look at things as concept, also tax. I do believe that although many people see tax as a black box and very complex, I try to detangle that always in very simple concept that can be understood by CFOs and say non-tax professionals. At the same time, I also see a lot of repetitivity in the work streams we do as a tax professional. And that also frustrated me in working for private equity. And that's also how I name TaxModel. The name comes from the TaxModel that was basically built by mainly big four companies, when there was an M&A deal to project best, middle, worst case scenarios, always in Excel. And I always saw that very nice, very expensive models being funded through the M&A world. And they were never spot on because there was a little connection to the actual business itself they were purchasing. And post acquisition, it was left immediately and not used. And I thought that was a kind of like a waste of time and money. So I started building. The first tool we started building was around tax modeling. So that's why how our name TaxModel came to life.
Yeah, that's a great, fascinating story. And as you know, I'm very much interested in things to do with tax governance. So I've seen that movement, as you talk about, from the tax structuring model, the traditional tax advisor, to an operational focus. And now we're talking the next generation, which is the enabling, harnessing technology to enable. So obviously, when you were starting out, you are at the forefront, you're bringing about a change, and that always has its own challenges. So what were those early day challenges that you faced?
I was kind of like Don Quixote person, and the one person shouting in the desert saying that we all need technology back in 2005, so 15 years ago. Everything. Today it's becoming very more common, but at that time, that was the biggest hurdle to where to start the change management. I thought that everybody was waiting for me with my technology, but no one was actually waiting for it. Everybody was paid very well. Why change if everything is going well and we don't see the need? That was my first challenge. Secondly, I don't have my own software engineer, so I started to outsource it to India with a coordinating center in Amsterdam. But I had no team around me to help me in managing the quality of the coding and everything. And in the end, that was a disaster. I wasted a lot of money as well on that, and that's where I decided to hire my own people instead of outsourcing.
Interesting. You've given me this really good image now of you tilting at windmills with the reference to Coyote. So Obviously now you talked a little bit about India, you've talked a little bit about, you being in Holland. I mean, do you think your Dutch background in any way influences, has shaped the tax model culture or the core principles of tax model?
Maybe. Of course, for me, it's very difficult to tell. I love other people to say that about us, whether that's true. What I can say about Dutch people in general, what I hear is that they are direct, and sometimes a bit, non-political enough. That's and I like basically being labeled that way, in the sense that I like directness, I like content, I like to promise. But I also like to deliver up to the promise within reason, of course. But that is all about it, where our, I think, drive for transparency, and I also like that we are, often a pain for a lot of other very large company software providers. To be a bit disruptive. So I guess that's also in the Dutch nature to be, on the front and to be a bit, disruptive as a company.
Yeah. It's always interests me coming from, going from London out to Amsterdam, and you see these Dutch houses without any curtains, so you can see right into the house. And I've always wondered about that, but thank you for clarifying. It's that transparency culture that comes in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, the big buzzword, anyone you talk to in the world of tax, it's all about taxology and being a tax technologist. So everybody's talking about this. There's numerous jobs going for it, and call me a Luddite. I am part of that old world, and I'm trying to step in. I think they call them sort of like nomads, don't they? Sort of like, so I'm a nomad, so I'm entering in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of noise about it. And perhaps you could just sort of like help clarify, what is tax technology? What is it that, there's a lot of misperception or, misunderstanding about it.
Yeah, there's the fun part is, of course, that we are using already technology. I think 99% of the world is using Word and Excel, although people don't think it's technology. That is Microsoft technology. I think Microsoft is the biggest provider, solution provider to the tax world and any world, except they don't know it, that they are that. So just that's about technology, but that's the nice thing about true technology is that you can work within boundaries, and that's basically Excel and Word and SharePoint. We use Excel for calculatory type of solutions. We use Word for documenting type of solutions, and we use SharePoint for repository purposes. So those components we really need. What the difficulty is with those technologies is that those have unlimited possibilities without boundaries. And to be able to automate and to help people in the complex world of tax, you need to standardize the concept around it so that they know in what kind of work stream they are operating. So that is the true essence of technology. And today, we are at a stage where, we are still kind of, very blunt, and that's apology for my being Dutch. We are all amateurs. So, this is the level of technology within tax is very low. We have tax return software, we have some VAT software. There's very little software in the direct tax field. And why is that? Is that because we manage the part of the P&L, which is very difficult to automate, simply because they cannot find that tax piece in the ERP systems of a company. What we do is we really look at the concept. So we think tax we don't try to automate the legislation, but we look at, for example, standards like the OECD standards, the guidelines for transfer pricing, IFRS, US GAAP for tax reporting. We look at, how we set up the flow for a master file, local file, For DAC6, we looked at the EU guidelines, the directive, and also the XML schemes published by the governments, because those are the boundaries basically where we would like to work with, and then leave the rest of the intelligence to the user. So we are basically building the hammer for the carpenter, but we never want to replace the carpenter. It's a kind of what we call cobotics, to be kind of like a popular term. But the level we are today is that people are now realizing, given also the COVID situation, okay, we need to work online, software is there to help, but it is never one click on a button. It's always garbage in, garbage out. At the same time, I think good technology should facilitate you to make your proper assessments and to make sure you're being facilitated in being compliant. That's the first objective we should all have, to become compliant. That's already difficult enough. The next step will be to get in control of what we are reporting, and then the final step is that we're going to anticipate on what we're going to do. So we become like then the artificial intelligence come in. But today we are nowhere near to the artificial intelligence. Sometimes we think we are, but if I look at all the dramas within the multinationals, but also with the intermediaries, and as you say, the nomad stage we are seeing, yeah, we have to meet people where they are today and take them on our journey into, the science fiction of having really artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so we are very much at the nomadic stage. We have yet to establish the cities and build the tall towers. It's a journey to go ahead. So just on that point, because I think, we talk about tax technology, but there is at least I see a lot more movement in one sector, and that's in the private sector. I mean, as you know, the United Kingdom's HMRC has spent a lot of money and commissioned the British Aerospace Technology to come in and build a system for them, the Connect system. This is a data mining system that has data analytics, and they are becoming very, very sophisticated. It's quite interesting. If you go to HMRC's website now, they don't want journalists. They want people with technology backgrounds to come and work at HMRC. They're not looking for people with a legal background. They're not looking for accounting background. They're now looking for technologists. Now, do you see that there is a difference between where the tax authorities are and where the private sector is?
Absolutely. We all think that, the tax authorities are slow and, they always are, years behind. That is really changing. And I think that multinationals and intermediaries are much further behind than we think. So it's time to get at least at the same level, because it will be very painful if authorities know more about a multinational than a multinational knows about itself. And what I understand, talking to the governments, also showing our solutions, we've shown our DAC6 solution, we've shown our benchmarking solution, our country-by-country solution. And we know that they are building algorithms to analyze feedback they get from those systems to make the analysis and to, pinpoint where they should start the audits. And we are also lucky that they have fewer resources on the audit side. But, they will become much more aware and proactive in finding the critical intel to make sure that they are, meeting their budgets. And the multinationals have difficulties to get on top of that, in my view. I have my thoughts how they can get on top of that, but that's already a long existing vision I have on that. But I really see that the authorities are simply ahead of the game, and with DAC6 it will be on a transactional basis. It will be very simple for them to connect everything, and I think we need to be at the same level. That's my...
No, that's helpful. And it was interesting, yesterday, the 15th of July, is when EU announced their new package just on fair and simple taxation, which was all around. I mean, sort of like C19 has left a pretty big hole in the coffers. The exchequer is out of money. And I think you're absolutely right. It's going to become important. If I may turn attention from a general industry to your own organization, I mean, obviously, you've told us a little bit about yourself. We've taken a view of where the organization, with the broader agenda is going with the HMRC, with the tax authorities. With respect to your own organization, I would like to just understand a bit more about, what have you built at Tax Technology? And one thing that really leaps out at me is if one goes to your website, I mean, first of all, you've actually put pricing there. Not many people put their prices up on their website. You've done that in your Dutch style. But what really hit me was, on one side you're talking about technology and it sounds really expensive, but your prices aren't very high.
No, that's a comment we often get, that they think, how is that possible? Why can you be so cheap? And I say I'm happy to increase my prices, of course, if you want. But people love. I just simply look at. We have very agile team. We don't have the big four spending in that sense. We are building tools already for more than 10 years, and I think that in the standardized tax technology, how small we even are, I think we are the largest in the world, to be honest. Simply, we are really operating in the direct tax fields. We have a full suite of direct tax solutions, transfer pricing, tax reporting, and now also DAC6. That is what we built, and we strive for maximum, also beauty, I would say. If you look at our DAC6 solution and TP-Doc, our latest two solutions, those have the latest, what we call material design and conversational design, as Google and Apple and etc. all are the lead, the peers in that respect. So the fact that we have a young team, we hire only talents directly from school. We educate them. Everything we build ourselves. And that is quite efficient. And I don't know, of course, I could follow the prices or keep less transparent our prices and try to negotiate on an individual basis. But our mission is that our software is accessible to anyone. Even €2,500 is, for a lot of companies we see today, still a lot of money, and it's acceptable. But still, it still takes some time, and I want. The price should never be an issue. I rather have the entire world in it than to fight for, the biggest deal in the world in that sense. So that is basically, I'm also, of course, a bit pushing my competitors to also be transparent on pricing. You saw my blogs on that. That's also a bit of part of our disruptive nature. I think the world is big enough for anyone. And dealing with a lot of prospects on our solutions, we compete directly always with typically the big four and sometimes also the mid four, as well as some what I call, say, one-point solution providers who only have one solution in that sense. And we really want to be unbeatable on price. And we take a bit of a hit in the beginning, but if we have sufficient followers, and we will still be in a good position from our own perspective.
Fantastic. That's useful to hear about your pricing philosophy, and particularly sort of like your the technology disruption side of things. And I mean, it's not when somebody described you as the Elon Musk of the tax world, I kind of sort of like knew that was always going to be an interesting. So, with your blogs and so on, just for our participants today, I mean, where do you post these blogs? Then can they follow your musings, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, of course. We post a lot. We do. If you go to our website or LinkedIn, if you can follow TaxModel as such. It's TaxModel.com. very simple. And yeah, we will share as much as possible. Ongoing. My marketing team is helping me, of course, on that. So it's great to have a young dynamic team who's really helping me, because I'm also a bit of a nomad in the marketing journey. I learned a lot over time. There's still no need. We see global clients coming in, and we can manage all that from our nice city in the Netherlands. So it's very, very interesting to see how much audience you can enroll from a distance using online marketing as a tool.
Yeah.
And also, what we really see is if you deliver a lot of content. So just we publish penalties on DAC6, for example, in a nice overview. We give it for free. If you give a lot, I always believe that you will receive a lot as well. And we always try to help explain people that we don't have the one click on a button solution and everything is solved. That doesn't exist. It will never exist. But there is a journey. We want to integrate all our solutions into a beautiful suite where you have kind of a feel that you have a full coverage of your tax control framework. We have already a lot of elements of that control framework, and now our journey is to get it connected and to get each tool, which we even started building like 10 years ago, that we have that at the same level of UX. But depending on the funds we receive, we can speed it up, or we have to align it with what we earn. So that is our journey. We try to be very transparent on our journey and where we use our funds for. And if we see a possibility to even lower the prices, we do that. An example that we don't. Sorry. I'm just.
No. Go ahead, please.
No, on our website, what we're going to do in the end, I would love to have a kind of a web shop where people can, we don't want to spend time a lot on negotiating. That's why we also love the low prices, and that people just can go to all our terms to see everything, see the prices, and then click what they need, and they're done.
Yeah. I mean, I can personally sort of like talk about my own experience. I mean, sort of like coming in with yourselves, interacting, and that whole ability to have a workshop, just start, bouncing ideas off each other, how we can work together, the flow charting, and just understanding the user experience, as you said, the connectivity is something which was really quite refreshing, because quite often in the past, technology was very much like, here is the standard offering, come and fit into, whereas I think sort of like it's a far more interactive, and maybe that's part of the agility and the size that your firm can offer. Do you want to sort of like, we have a really good question actually, sort of like from one of the participants who basically said, is pricing the only thing going for you? What else is there that's bound to attract you to your to DAC6 Pro offering?
You mean around DAC6 or in general? What people?
Well, the question was framed in general, but I would like to keep it specifically to, why should someone hire you besides price? To do the DAC6.
Yeah, because I think we are very open to build that community where we help each other, and that I like the pay it forward system. So what we try to build, so every question we get from the audience, for example, we post back into the community with the answers. So what I do a lot is also matchmaking. Yesterday I had a law firm who had 3 offices in different countries on DAC6, and they were struggling. How do we enroll? It's nice that you have a tool, but how do we enroll your tool within our organization? Because we need to change management, our team. And then we are also working on what we call DAC6 enforcer, to become compliant, to help people in motivate each other. That's a separate tool we'll be offering in September. But I'm also connecting that law firm to another law firm, which already are one step further, and talking to them and to learn their experience, how they manage their teams. So if you work with us, you step into a community. We are open and transparent on the technology. We can explain everything we do, even go as far as having people joining one of our technology IT sessions, and basically anything can be asked. And again, we always believe in mutuality, so and ambassadorship as well. So that's also our stance.
So specifically, TaxModel is there, you've set it up and so on. How do you look and deal with trends like DAC6, particularly as they're going to rise? They're not going to, there's not going to be abatement. There's going to be more of this coming through. And particularly as DAC6 evolves itself.
Yeah, again, what I said in the beginning, I always think in concept. So I see DAC6 also as a concept, and I try to distract the repetitive element in there, and then automate that part. So a lot of, for example, DAC6 developers started already 2 years ago. We started pretty late, end of last year. The only reason was that we waited until the governments would issue their XML schemes. Why? Is that the XML schemes is an exact X-ray of what the authorities would like to have. So if I stick to the XML scheme, I know that I can offer anyone the compliance. Of course, you can make a wrong decision and a wrong assessment, but we are there to make sure that you are compliant, and you are free to make a decision. And if you are in doubt on whether a hallmark is applicable or not, you still should have the ability to report, or if you want to be very precise, that you do not report or take a different turn, but that you always have a choice, but within like a protected environment. So we will also, we are asking the community to share their cases, so we can put it back to the software, and to we have a knowledge base where we put the knowledge in, and people can see examples that others already had done. So we give it back into the system also as part of the overall package.
And you talk about some jurisdictions, then obviously Poland's an interesting country, because in some ways they were racing ahead. Now they're no longer racing ahead.
No, they were too quick. So basically they are kind of like the EU Commission said, you're not aligned with, you did not implement as we wanted you to implement. So please go back to your drawing board. Everything is being reported in Poland is now null and void, and they have to do everything all over again. So
specifically, the whole technology piece in DAC6, now we just take it as convention that, of course, there's got to be a technology solution. But, as you say, sort of like you've got the traditional accountancy, legal firms who will come in, they'll do analysis and so on. What is it that makes technology relevant in the, if I can call it, the DAC6 ecosystem?
The technology makes it possible. What the authorities would like to make sure is that they want to basically scare the tax industry to stop searching for structures that are loopholes, etc. So they want you to make the assessments properly. So important is that you do that in a structured way, so you have a good audit trail on what you assess, and not only report, but also very important what you assess. And if you have a lot to report, or even in case of DAO, you have, say, bulk reporting, the manual effort is very high. So if the manual effort is high, you need you need speed. On top of that, it's very difficult if you are multinational. You have to report in multiple locations. How do you keep track of that? Where do you report? How do you maintain within your organization the consistency of your report and assessment? How do you control your intermediaries that are reporting what they do for you and you don't know it? So it's a way to stay on top and to stay ahead. And again, what I mentioned earlier is that authorities will know a lot about you, and they may come in, and it would be quite funny if they would ask you about something and you just say, hey, I just started with that scheme 2 days ago. How do you know? And then maybe some of the intermediaries already reported that implementation to the authorities, and they just call you, hey, what's happening here?
You mentioned that one thing that technology solving is the geographic complexity, the spread. But But isn't that what makes it more difficult to actually apply technology, because you've got whatever 27 different jurisdictions, and you're trying to sort of like make sense of it, and each one has its own schema and differences, and now each one is moving at a different rate because the deferral dates are different and so on.
Yeah. No, yeah. Again, we don't want to. It's indeed what you say. I think a moving target, and also with very different rollout dates by country. Every country has its speed, and the obvious countries like Greece and the southern countries are late in the process, and of the Nordic countries are quicker. So Germany, Finland, Austria decided not to defer. The rest deferred or didn't say anything, basically. And there are only a few have published their technical guidelines. There are today, I think, 7 or 8 countries that publish their technical guidelines. So the difficulty for us is not in terms of the legislation, but we are waiting for the government to publish their technical guidelines so we can help to align the solution exactly in the same pace as the governments are releasing their technical input. So that is what I say. We focus on the XML schemes first, and then at the same time we have connected to our solution a knowledge base where we make sure you have all at the directive text. First of all, that's a starting point. The tool has been based as a logic on what the directive intended to do. That's the framework we have. And then we offer, say, in a knowledge base that we give you information on a country by country basis, but only for the countries that are involved in an arrangement. So we don't want to flood people with 28 different interpretations. We only give you the interpretations for the countries involved in the arrangement. And you will see the local enactments and the differences compared to the directive. And we also try to add examples like nice, structure charts or, sample cases that are published by any respectful advisor. And that's how we offer the knowledge to it. We don't try to program that, but we offer the knowledge so that the people using it can still make the decision based on their assessment of a specific hallmark, and looking at the samples and the interpretations we are giving them in our knowledge base.
Yeah, that's a really important point. You've got 3 very important points there that I do want to come back. Now, the first one is the last one, is that issue of enabling flexibility. So the firm who is the intermediary who has to report, the obligation falls on them. They retain the right to decide whether to report or not. You're not making that judgment, are you?
No, exactly. Everybody who's using our tool, whether it's a taxpayer or intermediary, they decide what they want to do. And even if it's, in my view, it would be incorrect, or any expert, they can still decide to follow their own route, as long as. But you can put an audit trail in there, and then you can explain why you've done so. So you can always explain. And of course, you can also set the user rights that your reviewer, will check what the preparer has done. So it's also up to the internal controls of the user of the solution, how strong and the solution is set into the dynamics of an organization.
Sure. And returning back to this point about, sort of like whatever 7 jurisdictions have come up with their schema and others are yet to. So, I mean, how could you be marketing a solution, a Europe-wide solution, when all the rules aren't out? Is it? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there are 3 that are out. So Germany, I get yesterday a question from a multinational. Are you ready for Germany, for example? Because we are multinational, we also have to report in Germany. Yes. Can your system support that? Yes, we support. The nice thing is that that we can support in line with what governments allow you to do. So the aim is penalty protection in first instance, that you have done your homework and that you've done your assessments. Now, that you can prove with our solution that you have done that. The second step is, if you cannot report in a country because the government is not ready, it's not your mistake, it's the government's mistake. So you can never be penalized for that, in my view. So we can promote people to help them to get organized. So to first to shape up the backlog of the past 2 years they should have done, although many didn't. And then going forward, people can already use the solution to build the repository, and then as soon as the thing become available by country, they can start reporting in that country.
So the rule book you're using,
Sorry,
the rule book you're using to get to that point, to get them to a point whereby they can report, is essentially modeled on the directive itself.
Yes,
that's what you're doing, in case that country hasn't come up with more specific guidance.
Exactly. So what we are doing, we look at the, first of all, the XML schemes of the Netherlands and Germany were used as a basis basically for our system. They are very closely aligned. There's only one field that is slightly different. Finland, although they don't do the deferral, they don't have an XSD scheme published. So they said, in the meantime, please use a manual form. Of course, our system cannot support manual activity. What we can provide, of course, is allowing you to do an export from the system, to have the exact info that is needed, and use that as a basis for filling the manual form.
That's right. So you got all the essential data points that can be then used to lodge.
And we will adjust the XML. We as soon as it is being published, we compare it with our basic XMLs. Because of course the European Commission also has prescribed an XML format, and we just our IT team is detecting always the differences by country to see it's the very big change, because we of course need more time if the XML is really different. But in the end, we don't expect too much differences, not even from Poland, simply because data needs to be exchanged through the database in Luxembourg on an EU basis. So, and if it's not aligned with the rest, they cannot exchange the same data.
I'm going to ask you a few more questions about your DAC6 Pro product. But before I go to that, I mean, and again, it's a question from a nomad, so please bear with me. But, I hear in the technology world, there's discussion about Linux, there's Microsoft systems operating system, and then there's the Apple operating system. Where do you sit? I mean, is it likely that you talk about community, that other people will just follow you and adopt your system? Or, will you be working with the PwCs of this world and you will be adopting their standard? Or are there going to be multiple standards, or is your going to prevail? Do you see what I'm getting at? If I can use the analogy of an operating system.
You mean that if I believe we become a standard in the industry or something, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, because there has to be a standard, presumably, at some point.
I have a very strong vision on bespoke systems. I don't think they work. Of course, they work for the individual multinational that has requested the bespoke system. I believe it's a very expensive journey and an endless journey, because every time you update your EEP system, you need to update also your technology on the tech side. It's very limited in possibility, so the scalability of that is not good. At the same time, it's unaffordable by most multinationals, because we start with multinationals that have very simple cross-border transactions. Any multinational above 5 million in turnover we start with, until we have clients over 60, 70 billion in size, and they all use the exact same software. And that is why I think, because, for example, transfer pricing, OECD guidelines, you don't find a master file, local file in your ERP system. There are not words, there are only numbers in an ERP system. So how do you connect that? It's impossible. So you need a kind of like a standardized tool that you can operate on a plug and play basis. And sometimes you can use Excel still, or Word as an interface, but that's purely to save you enormous amounts of time and money. For us, it's almost as fast, and it saves you like 99% of time and cost.
So I'll tell you what I'm struggling with, okay? Because I see two opposing forces, yes? On one side, you have a proposition which is, by your own admission, your transparency is very, very cost effective. And there's no doubt about that. Nobody's arguing with that.
Mhm.
On the other side, you see, the likes of the big four, each coming up with their own solution. You got a multitude of other providers who are all operating this space. Now, I'm thinking every airline does not have its own runway. That just doesn't make sense, does it?
No. Yeah.
So do you see where I'm getting at? So I'm thinking, so
I
is
understand.
Hank's model going to prevail and you're going to provide the runway for the rest of the industry? Or will we continue to all have our own runways? Because that won't be cost efficient, and maybe some of us won't want to, we may have made the investment today, but is it an investment we want to continue making? Especially if my business is tax, advice rather than tax technology.
Yeah, I've also had my journey with a lot of big four companies, and they all have the syndrome of not invented by themselves, of not invented by me syndrome. So that is kind of the difficulty, and I think given the independency they need to have, that will break the company in two, or at some point the big four need to decide, are we a software company or are we an audit firm? I think that is, they cannot continue. Of course, they try to do it, they do it, but they're extremely inefficient, and that's why I think very, very expensive. Of course, they have a name in the market, and in the end, a lot of people will, and the CFO want to rely on the big name. But for software, they're not scalable, simply in my view. So they are of course stubborn, and they try and they want, and they see that technology is required and coming. And IT Tax Advisory 2.0 is a service around technology, not services with a bit of technology. No, it's really services around and based on technology. And they see that. The only thing that they struggle with is to build a scalable software house where they can also offer, for a much more affordable price, a solution. And in the end, they don't want you as a software client, they want you as a consulting client. So they have a different agenda, and I don't need the consulting work. I don't care about the consulting work, to be honest. We get a lot of consulting work still, and I still hesitant even to take it on board, simply because I want to grow and to offer the standardized solution. And I think if we compare ourselves to other companies, there are still a lot of one-point solution providers. I think, or they should merge and work together, or maybe work with me.
Yeah.
There will be only a few survivors in the end. But today there is, what I say, the field we are working is very green at the moment still.
I mean, I've, as you know, my own background, I've worked with 3 of the big 4 firms, and I've always found that, quite often tax people get terribly excited about technology, and that lasts for a little while, and then they get bored, because consultants are geared towards doing next assignments. Whereas, so many times I've seen sort of like, it was a great idea to start off with. 2 years later, you're just bored with keep updating your technology. Are you with me? So I think you're quite right. There will be that separation, and particularly sort of like precipitated by what the Financial Reporting Council is doing, the splits that are going to be down the road. And of course, the consulting work, Hank, you just send it across to me and I'll handle that.
Actually, I will do that, Ali.
Yes. Well, one thing we can announce, both of us, is we signed an agreement yesterday. So we're going to be working collaboratively. And that's one thing that, Hank, you have been doing. You've been assisting a number of other intermediaries, lawyers and accountants, haven't you?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
And presumably that's part of your community as well, so that we feed back to you the market developments that are taking shape.
Yeah, outside the big 4, we work with any size multinational, any size intermediary. We do a lot of law firms, the largest in the world, but also the smaller ones, and also a lot of the mid 4 accounting firms who don't have the pockets to afford very expensive software engineers on board. So yeah, we have a huge community already, and it's growing rapidly now. Yeah.
Now, time is running away. I'm really interested in finding out so much more from you, but I'm going to sort of like, before I go into my other deep questions, very quick question, is a yes or no, or some with a little bit of elaboration, is the market is really, really worried about Germany. We're weeks away from reporting. Germany is the largest economy in the EU. So can you help?
Yeah, of course. Sign up and we deploy in a few minutes. So that is very simple, and yeah, we are supporting that. So we are providing the knowledge base, try to keep it up to date, and we will make sure you have your repository. If you have a backlog, we have dedicated Excel sheets which you can import in our solution. So yes, we can certainly facilitate almost immediately.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's worth knowing. Now, I am going to go back because to me, I am a bit of a conceptualist. I like understanding how things work, the philosophical foundations to it. And one of the things that has been there at the heart of your program is this focus on UX, the experience, and sort of like I mentioned sort of like the Tesla guy. Some have called you the sort of like the Stephen Jobs of the industry. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about the comparison with Steve Jobs, as he's dead, as we all know.
You're quite alive.
That's not my ambition to be that. Yeah, and I like, of course, the beauty of what he has initiated and built. Of course, I'm very respectful of that. The only difference I would like to make is to combine, if you would take him as a reference, with the Robin Hood type of combination. That's why we want to be affordable. Where I see, if you look at Apple, it's quite expensive still, the toolings that they offer, although beautiful. But I like the beauty. That's what I want to have. At the same time, also to be very affordable. Also not for free, because I don't believe in for free. Because, for example, we don't do trials unless we have a bulk order for many potential licenses, simply because we think, okay, for this price you can simply try it. If you don't like it, you can stop next year, or even if you find a mistake or whatever, you can report it into our service desk, and if we can't solve it, we will even refund you the money.
So just on that simplicity point, the ease of use, or whatever you like to call it, the customer, because a lot of banks quite often aren't large enough to have internal tax departments.
Yeah.
What you're offering, can it be operated by non-tax people who don't have a fiscal background, who don't have the university master's degree in taxation law like you do?
Yeah, it's a tool for professionals. All our tools are built for the tax professionals, whether they're in-house or whether they are consultants. So for, say, our direct tax suite outside DAC6, you need to be a professional. Of course, with a bit of training, you can come to a large extent. So it certainly will very quickly improve. We also try to use our tools for training purposes. But if you look at DAC6, it's different, because DAC6 is, of course, it's more a compliance solution than a real direct tax workflow solution, if I call that. It's kind of like a different animal compared to the other solutions. So yes, I'm tempted to say it can be used by also non-tax professionals. It has to be, because a lot of intermediaries have also not tax professionals.
Good.
The only thing is that you need a reviewer who understands the hallmarks. So we don't program the hallmarks in that sense. So we cannot help you in a decision on that. We can offer you the explanations, the knowledge around it, where examples we can give it. We can also, and that's also what we like about the community. They can, for example, give us the translations they would like to have as a help function towards their people that are non-tax professionals, so that we can facilitate. But there has to be a bit of guidance.
Of course.
And our UX, what we do is two things. We have what we call conversational design. So we help you by what you see to get to the next step. So that is there you're helped with. And for the rest, we look at material design. Means that, you know, where do we place the button? We have tools which monitor the actual use of the tool by our clients. We see where they are getting stuck in the system, so we try then to improve the user experience to make sure that it's kind of like an automatic feel.
Yeah.
We do believe that you know, the bigger the manual, the worse the UX, I would say.
Of course. No, that's really helpful. And of course, this is where our partnership comes in, because we can help with the
Exactly.
the hallmarks. Yes.
Yeah, and of course, you will have a situation where we will help the community by giving, hey, these are standard cases, you know, these fall within hallmark X, Y, and Z, and you will be certainly assisting us or clients with assessing, you know, the more edge cases, I would say.
Yeah. Now, I'm just conscious of time, and I'm going to give you literally seconds to answer this question, because the big question that's always asked is, you know, you got this big European measure called GDPR, which is all about protecting data privacy rules and things like that. And organizations get fined really heavily if they get that wrong. So how safe is the platform you've got?
Yeah, we are, first of all, ISO 27001 certified as one of the few tax technology companies that guarantees that we have privacy and security, that security management certification, highest standard. For the rest, we use everything under Microsoft stack. And we promise the community that we store any data on the Western Europe servers, not in the US, not in China. That's a guaranteed for obvious reasons, and that's often asked also by the community.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. You saw earlier on that there was a invitation to the DAC6 Pro demo, and I would definitely join in. That's part of the community that Hank and his team run. As was mentioned at the outset, this is a complex area. DAC6 is. It's a challenge. And with that, I would really like to thank Hank, and we will be continuing the discussion on our webinar next week in the area of DAC6. It's going to be at the same time, where we will be discussing the deferral in more detail with the leading tax authorities in the field. So with that, thank you very much, Hank, and thank you very much to our audience, and particularly the questions that they kept going. Do get in touch with Hank and his team. And with that, I would like to thank everyone, and stay safe and tune in to next week. And there's the link for that. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good week.